look, we can hypothesize one thing. I can potentially hypothesize one thing. Okay, like we can ask ourselves the question: why is it that our sisters and our brothers, they look up to these celebrities?
No, I'm not worried at all. I rely on God, Allah.
With that hijab issue, for myself, like being in the dawah, for many years, I just feel that is just endemic for some core causes. And that core cause can manifest itself different for a sister, can manifest itself differently for a brother, for somebody who's older, who's someone who's younger. So it's like, I guess it's just my clinician mindset where I just observe the symptoms, but I'm looking at core causes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when I'm looking at this, whether it's like the brothers who's in a sister who's in the way, and by the way, for both brothers and sisters, you could have a brother who outwardly looks very, very practicing, but inwardly is very far from the deen. Maybe very close to nifaq. Same thing with a sister, could be wearing hijab very, very far. So for me, that's a very poor metric necessarily, just the outward appearance of a person, right? So. But when we're if I'm trying to protect my community, and as a father myself, you're looking at, okay, what are the threats out there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm a firm believer that it's better to chase health rather than, chasing treatments all the time.
Yeah.
This is how we're going to treat this disease. So it's better to, chase that health. So especially for the youth, that idea of having a strong identity, it does become muddled. I think it does become problematic given the political discourse. Like, where do I fit in? Do I fit in from a traditional perspective from my parents' generation? Do I fit in from, like, I'm trying to fit in maybe with like a new activist movement, in my community, like a non-Muslim activist movement. So there's inherent, issues that come up there. So for a lot of people, it's like, who am I? Like, how do I fit in? This sister that I was getting inspired for many like years, all of a sudden now takes off her hijab. Who am I?
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? And so I think that's more of a core issue where I think, like you said, like, thinkers, imams, academics, we need to sit down and talk about how do we make that identity stronger so that, if a strong wind comes, it doesn't knock it down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's really interesting because it touches on a very personal note. Look, we can hypothesize one thing. I can potentially hypothesize one thing. Okay, like we can ask ourselves the question: why is it that our sisters and our brothers, they look up to these celebrities, right? So I mean, even if we were just to focus on sisters, if we were just going to stay in that place, I mean,
well, listen,
why
the brothers, for brothers, they say you Muhammad Salah, say if he now does something wrong in the future or whatever, right?
That's it.
Or anybody, any type of celebrity you can look up to, or a YouTuber. And some of these YouTubers, they started off with like just funny, Muslim skits, and then it became like really gross. Like it turned into being like really, really gross stuff afterwards, right?
Absolutely. So I think the reason why I went back to like making a gender differentiation is because I think essentially there is a gender difference in like maybe the issues, but I think absolutely that's what we need to do, right? Like we need to sort of figure out and have a better understanding of these sort of role models, why them. And I think there's a lot to be said there. But I was just thinking about one thing, man, SubhanAllah, because I think one sister mentioned about her daughter. So like the sister took off that hijabi influencer. She took off her hijab, and the sister had mentioned in a group that her daughter had looked up to her or whatever it might be. And then the sister mentioned, well, why don't you go follow someone else? And the sister then, her daughter had mentioned or responded that there was no one else to follow, right? There was just like, there was no one else wearing hijab to follow, right?
Do I feel that the New York police are providing enough protection, or do I have to have protection of my own? I looked for protection from Allah.